The aluminum pontoon boat wasn't even halfway to the dock when I heard the sirens screaming down Maple Crest Drive. 2 squad cars came tearing around the corner into our quiet cul-de-sac, their lights painting blue and red streaks across the afternoon sky. And there she was, Patricia Garrison, the self-appointed Lake HOA coordinator, standing at the edge of my property line like some kind of deranged traffic controller, waving her arms and screaming into her phone. "He's trespassing on HOA waters," she shrieked, her voice carrying across the lake. "He's not authorized to launch that vessel. I demand you arrest him immediately." The first officer stepped out of his cruiser, adjusted his belt, and started walking toward me. I cut the engine and let the boat drift the last few feet to my private dock. That's when Officer Reynolds stopped dead in his tracks. "Captain Monroe," he said, his eyes widening as they landed on the badge clipped to my belt. I gave him a small nod. "Hey, Reynolds, good to see you." Patricia's phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the pavement. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. "That's right," I said, tying off the boat with practiced ease. "You just called 911 on the police. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this ridiculous situation. My name is Captain Daniel Monroe, and after 22 years with the State Wildlife Department, I'd finally retired. All I wanted was a quiet lakefront property where I could fish, work on my woodworking projects, and generally mind my own business. I'd paid cash for the house on Sunset Ridge, complete with a private dock, boathouse, and most importantly, deed water rights to Lake Silverstone. The problem started the day after I moved in. I was out on my dock, setting up my tackle box when this woman, in pressed khakis and a clipboard, marched down to the water's edge. She looked like she'd stepped out of a suburban warfare catalog, complete with a sun visor that said Lake Authority in embroidered letters. "Excuse me," she said, in a tone that suggested I should be grateful for her attention. "I'm Patricia Garrison, Lake HOA coordinator. I don't see your vessel registration on file." I looked up from my fishing rod. "That's because there's no such thing as a Lake HOA." Her face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "I'll have you know that I founded the Lake Silverstone Homeowners Association 3 years ago. We regulate all watercraft activities on this lake." "That's interesting," I said, turning back to my tackle. "But I own this section of waterfront. My property deed includes water rights, so thanks, but no thanks." She huffed and scribbled something on her clipboard. "You'll be hearing from U.S." And boy did I hear from them. Letters started arriving within days. The first one informed me that I was unauthorized to dock a vessel without Lake HOA certification. The second demanded I pay a $50 wake disruption fee for using my own boat on my own water. The third, and this is my personal favorite, cited me for excessive rod holders and unsanctioned bait selection. Each letter got more ridiculous than the last. Patricia had apparently created an entire bureaucracy around a lake that she had no legal authority over. She'd even designed laminated cards that said Lake HOA Inspector and wore them on a lanyard. During her patrols, I watched from my deck one morning as she marched down to the Henderson's dock with her whistle and clipboard, demanding to see their nautical compliance documentation. Poor Bob Henderson just wanted to take his grandkids fishing. Instead, he got a 20-minute lecture about proper life jacket coloration and the dangers of unregistered bobbers. When I politely declined to attend her mandatory lake safety orientation, she escalated. I came home from the hardware store to find a laminated citation taped to my front door. In bold letters, it read, "Notice of Marine Noncompliance," followed by a list of my supposed violations, including failure to submit vessel measurements and refusing lakefront inspection. I did what any reasonable person would do. I ignored it. That's when things got weird. Patricia started showing up at odd hours, taking photos of my boat from the street. She'd set up orange traffic cones to block my driveway, claiming it was for lake-related safety inspections. When I had friends over for a barbecue, she confronted them at their cars with her clipboard and a GPS app, insisting they needed guest water passes to be on the property. My neighbor, Jim Kowalski, told me she'd been doing this for years. Apparently, she'd moved to the neighborhood, discovered there was no HOA governing the lake, and decided to create one herself. She'd been charging residents lake access fees and boat registration dues, pocketing the money for her administrative costs. Most people just pay the $20 a month to shut her up. Jim said it's easier than fighting her, but I wasn't most people. I'd spent over 2 decades enforcing actual laws, and I wasn't about to be shaken down by someone playing pretend. Admiral, the situation reached its breaking point on a perfect Saturday in July. I'd invited 4 guys from my old unit over for a fishing day. Just a few retired officers, a cooler full of sandwiches, and my pontoon boat. We were laughing about old times, loading up the gear, when Hurricane Patricia came storming across the lawn. She was clutching binoculars in one hand and her phone in the other, her face twisted with rage. "This lake is regulated by the HOA," she screamed. "You are violating maritime code. This is an unsanctioned gathering. You need permits for group water activities." "Patricia," I said calmly, "please get off my dock. I have authority here," she shrieked, waving a laminated badge that looked like something from a cereal box. "I am the duly appointed lake coordinator, and I'm asking you to leave my property," I repeated. Her face went purple. "That's it. I'm calling 911. You're probably running some kind of illegal fishing ring. This could be environmental terrorism." I exchanged glances with my buddies. Mike Daniels, who'd been a detective for 30 years, just shook his head. "Is she serious?" Oh, she was serious. Patricia stomped to the edge of my property line and made the most dramatic 911 call I've ever witnessed. She used words like suspicious activity, unauthorized maritime operation, and yes, possible environmental terrorism. She gave my address 3 times and demanded immediate response to a crime in progress. We just stood there holding our fishing rods, waiting for the inevitable. When Officers Reynolds and Chan pulled up, they came out with their hands on their holsters, ready for whatever emergency Patricia had described. Then Reynolds saw me, saw the badge on my belt, and his whole demeanor changed. "Captain Monroe, what's going on here?" "Hey, Reynolds, just trying to take the boat out with some friends. This lady seems to have an issue with it." Chin looked at Patricia, who was now backing away slowly. "Ma'am, did you call in a report of environmental terrorism?" "There's he's violating Lake HOA regulations," she stammered. Reynolds turned to me. "Captain, do you own this property?" "Yes, including deed water rights to this section of the lake. And these are your guests, retired officers from the department." "Yes." Chin pulled out his notepad. "Mom, are you aware that misuse of emergency services is a crime? You reported terrorism and suspicious activity when you apparently have a neighborhood dispute about a fake HOA." Patricia's mouth opened and closed silently. For once, she had nothing to say. "But I did, officers. I'd like to file a formal complaint for harassment, misuse of 911, and trespassing. This woman has been harassing me and my guests for months with her mad-up lake authority." The next few weeks were beautiful to watch. Once I filed the formal complaint, the city got involved. Turns out Patricia had been running her lake HOA out of a shed she'd built on city greenbelt property without permits. Code enforcement showed up with a cease and desist order and found boxes of laminated cards, fake certificates, and most damning of all, ledgers showing she collected over $40,000 in lake fees. Over 3 years, the city fined her $8,000 for the illegal structure. The county district attorney opened a fraud investigation, and the real HOA, the one that actually governed our neighborhood, but had no authority over the lake. Called an emergency meeting. I attended that meeting in my full uniform, just for effect. Patricia was asked to explain her maritime enforcement policies to a room full of angry neighbors who've been paying her fake fees for years. She actually brought a presentation. I kid you not. She had a trifold poster board with a hand-drawn organizational chart labeled Lake Ho Navy Chain of Command with herself at the top as Admiral Coordinator. She listed 37 lake rules, including no loud loons after 8 p.m. and mandatory boat shoe inspection. Someone in the back row recorded the whole thing on their phone. It went viral within days. The video title was Lake HOAkaren vs. State Wildlife Captain. She loses badly and it got over 2 million views. Patricia tried to defend herself, claiming she was just trying to maintain order and protect the lake ecosystem. But when pressed for any legal authority, any certification, any actual training in lake management, she had nothing, just her laminated badges and a dream of nautical dominance. The room voted unanimously to ban her from any HOA involvement. The county prosecutor filed charges for fraud and theft by deception. She was looking at up to 5 years in prison and $50,000 in restitution to all the neighbors she'd scammed. When the judge read the charges, Patricia fainted right there in the courtroom. She had to be revived with smelling salts only to hear she was facing 3 felony counts. Her lawyer, probably working pro bono, looked like he wanted to be anywhere